Hello and welcome to Talk It Out, where we talk it out. I'm Duryea Rashad, and I'll be your host for this evening. Thank you for joining us. Now, if you haven't done so already, please like, share, subscribe, pass this on to your friends, your family, anyone you know. Today, we're going to have such a great time. But before we get into that, I want to remind you, Talk It Out is a place where people can come and have opposing views and get together and have a healthy, productive dialogue in a respectful way. Keeping in mind that it's not always about proving who's right and who's wrong. Sometimes it's simply about listening and being heard. Now, today's episode is a special episode, not only because we're live. Today's the geek episode. We're about to geek out, about to talk about Charm, Buffy, X-Men, Wolverine, everything y'all can think of under the sun. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our illustrious panel. First, we have Justin, who has a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science and Math. His favorite series is Avatar: The Last Airbender. We've got Rakia Ware, who's a special education teacher and an up-and-coming social media manager. Her favorite TV show or series is Buffy. We have Jessa Garrett, who's got a BA in journalism from Auburn, and she's a marketing manager for South Transportation Group. She's also a Buffy buff. See what I did right there? And we've got Chris, who has a BFA in theater performance, and he's currently an operations manager for a tech franchise, and his favorite series is X-Men. My favorite series is Charm, which is the best, but we'll get to that later, okay? So, how are y'all doing?
Great.
Doing good.
For having me.
Good.
Are y'all excited about the show?
We're doing it.
I'm a little stressed.
Yeah.
We had to do it on the fly today. We were making it right.
We can tell because you called me Justin.
Did I call you Justin?
I love you though.
You did.
No, I didn't. I actually wrote your name. I just read it wrong. So my brain is over there somewhere.
I got you. I understand.
The way we start, we like to do a check-in with everybody. First, we like to check in because we're going to have so much fun. We're going to hot topics and all that. We're going to talk about celebrity gossip and all this. It's going to be fun. So first, I want to hear how you all are doing right now, quarantine or not quarantining, how it's going. So let's start with a check-in with Jessa.
Okay, so well, it's kind of weird for me. So I work for a transportation company. We sell like big, heavy trucks and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We've been considered essential the entire time. So there were a couple months where I worked from home, but I've been back at work full time for also a couple months. So really kind of life is moving back towards a sense of normal for me. And, you know, my husband's actually, he's an engineer. He works in the transportation industry as well. So we've both been working full time. So there's really not a huge weirdness for us other than, you know, wearing masks when going out, that kind of thing. So we're doing good. We've used it as a time to take projects on. I've redone our guest bedroom. We've, you know, redoing a lot of rooms in the house just so that I don't lose my mind of boredom. But, you know, so good, actually, maybe.
That's good. I mean,
maybe not for the wallet, but good for my psyche. So
okay, dope. How about you, Chris? How are you doing?
Kind of, I mean, I have the same kind of story as Jessa. You know, not a lot of has changed for me. My work was deemed essential at the very beginning of the coronavirus. So been working, you know, the whole time, but we have started hiring some people back. So that means that I got my first 3-day weekend in a long time. Not this past weekend, but the weekend before, I went to the mountains, enjoyed a nice little relax and vacay in the mountains, mini vacay, obviously 3-day weekend's not like huge, but for me, it was a nice reset. It was great to get away for a little bit. And hopefully we'll be hiring some other people back soon so we can take a little longer vacation. Because I've got a lot of vacation time saved up, just waiting to use it.
Okay. Rakia, what's up with you?
Well, so I'm a teacher, so I'm technically on summer vacation.
When does that end?
We go back at the beginning of August. So it's been different where like in March we did the distance learning and then that ended like right at the beginning of June. And so now it's just mainly just keeping my kids occupied, not trying to go out too often. Basically trying to shelter in place as much as we can,
Right.
and enjoy this time. So like while I've been off, I've been trying to start my own business doing social media management. So that's where I got that started going.
Good for you.
I like that. I love that entrepreneur stuff. That's what it is right now. You good luck to all that. Okay.
Thank you.
Julian, what's going on with you?
Well, I've actually been not exactly not social distancing in its own way. I think the last time, at least, I had spoken on one of these with you, I was talking about, well, I myself was distancing as much as everyone else, but I was like, oh, I need some like human contact. So finally, I've been like able to link up with one of my good friends. I mean, it's just really us kind of, but we did go to New York. So while New York generally has everything under control.
You took a social distant road trip to New York?
Yeah, because that's why we just keep ourselves away from everyone else. So they like New York has it mostly under control, and they're doing pretty good with that. But there were a few moments where I was just like, oh, this is a little uncomfortable because just other people make it a little bit more uncomfortable because they themselves weren't like following, they weren't wearing masks when they probably should have been and things like that. Also, I did go to the beach, but it wasn't one of those. But
you're one of those people. You're one of the people.
I'm not. No, not at all. Not at all. You know what I mean? Like we had our masks on pretty much the whole time. Not when we're actually on the beach, when we're actually distant from everyone else. But that's the other thing. It was a small group of people. Like literally like 5 people. You know what I mean? And we kept to ourselves. But it was actually even more uncomfortable because literally no one was wearing a mask except for us. And we were like, is South Jersey, because, we're from North Jersey, so we go down to the south to get to the beach area usually. So we're like, is it not a thing in South Jersey or what? Because people were like on the boardwalk with no mask on. People were just like walking on the sidewalk with no mask on. It was a little disconcerting. Like, and my group of friends and I myself were probably the only ones who did wear a mask off of the beach at all.
Right.
So it was like it. I can see how we are where we are, but it is what it is, I suppose, at this point.
Okay. Well, my check-in, I've had a crazy past few days, just trying to get everything together and trying to get organized with things. I have things that I'm writing. I have things that I'm like, who is there somebody driving in the background? Is someone moving? Someone mobile? No. I have things that I'm trying to do and get accomplished, and I feel like I'm finally getting things organized to where I can actually know what I'm doing. Things are starting to level out, so I'm really excited about that. Really, when I say this weekend has been crazy, it's a lot of stuff in the news that has really just been stressing me out that I can't wait to talk about. So, but other than that, I'm great. I'm glad you all are here. We just lost Chris, but there he is. He's back. I'm glad you all are here. So let's get started. I want to talk about, okay, does anyone get offended if I say Karens? Okay, I was really just talking to you, Jess. I didn't know. I didn't want to,
I think I'm a Karen? Like what?
No, I don't think you are, but I don't know how.
Because she's the only white female on the panel, is that?
That's
That's what it was. Yeah.
So racist.
That is a little like, it's not racist. Technically. It's not racist.
I'm kidding.
I mean, okay. So there's been a lot of Karen activity that is like out of the charts ridiculous this last weekend. Okay. So I have a clip that I want to show y'all. But before I show that clip, there's 2 clips I want to talk about. One is this clip. Have you seen the clips of these women going into these grocery stores and flipping the hell out when they tell them to wear masks?
Oh my God.
Yeah, the girl like just throwing crap at
That drives me crazy.
Oh my God.
Yeah, out of her cart. I was like,
So you're telling me You took the time to go around the store. So you've been in the store with the mask on, with the mask off already. You took the time to go around the store shopping, no mask, no gloves, put all this stuff in the basket, right? And when they tell you whatever had happened before the video started, your response is to then
throw all your shit on the
Have a damn fit.
He literally had a temper tantrum, like a
It
child.
was like a 5-year-old. I don't have a 5-year-old, but
No.
5-year-olds.
What I will say is that I don't understand why they didn't like check her at the door, kind of a thing. Like she had to been walking around, and there had to be staff somewhere who saw her without a mask on before she put all that crap in her cart.
Her cart was full. Her cart was full.
Yeah, she was pulling out things for like 5 minutes. Like she's been shopping the whole time. Like nobody had to tell her, no, they're gonna wait until she's at the checkout line. Like that was a little.
But maybe that was the gag. Maybe
at the same time, girl, you should know by now. Hello.
No, maybe that was the gag, Julian. Maybe they were sitting. I could see somebody sitting there, be like, "Look, we're gonna let this bitch fill that cart." And then as soon as she gets tag,
and then wait.
But can you not change the meaning? Sorry, you talk first.
No, go
So,
ahead.
like-
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, because like think about it though, like before we had these Black Lives Matter protests, we've had protests with people
Mask.
like not wanting to wear masks and not wanting to shelter in place. So like knowing myself, like if I were to be an employee at a grocery store, I don't want to be the one to tell a lady that she needs to be wearing a mask or ask her, because some of these people are just real entitled and they will get in your face. Like I don't have time to get arguing with folks.
When I tell you, like, I have had, not necessarily to me, but I've definitely been out and had people who are at their jobs be like, "Oh, you need to get a mask. You can't come in here without a mask." Like I've seen people without any qualms, Black people, white people, men, women, like who are at work. Because I think
every day, every single day.
I had to do that. Yeah.
Like, I don't have no problem wearing a mask. Like no,
I've
but
done it
okay,
myself.
cool, fine.
What's weird to me is, so we just had an order go into effect in our county, and the demographics of where I work, our customers, they are a bunch of old truckers, right? So we're talking like old in their 50s, 60s, white, conservative, Republican men. That's typically our demographic, right? None of them complain when you ask them to wear a mask. So it's so interesting to me that it's like the people like my age, maybe a little older, who are like just being a Karen. So it's just interesting to me that's kind of something happening too, right? I don't know.
Well,
it was interesting to me.
Is it because like the truckers know like because they're constantly traveling and going from place to place? Like maybe they're a little bit more cognizant of that.
Maybe, but it's like fleet owners, and so it's not just, it's like business owners. It's not just like it's the truckers themselves. There's people coming in to buy parts and stuff. But if you ask them to wear a mask, they're just like, "Oh yeah, absolutely, I'll wear my mask." They might walk in without it, but if you ask them. So it's so funny to me that it's like this lady at the supermarket is like flipping out just because they want her to wear a mask. It's just weird how that.
The excuses these women come up with is what I'm talking about. It's the excuses. It's like this one lady I saw on the news. She's standing in front of a podium talking about, "These are my rights," and you making me put this mask on. She literally likened it to slavery. She said, "This is like slavery," and I'm like, "Did you just say that?" And then there was this one girl. There's a video of this girl who has asthma, and she has this machine. It's a little finger thing that says how much oxygen she's getting. She's like, "I have asthma. This says how much oxygen I'm getting." And she puts the mask on and she shows, like, she has it like bad too. And she's like, "No, this doesn't stop your breathing at all." So I want to touch on that for just a second before I show y'all this video right here. Okay, so this next video I'm about to show y'all is of a woman who recently was charged. I don't even go with that. I'm just going to show you the video. Let me get, okay. Do my little tech.
Let's see it.
Okay.
Got the gun on me. She got the gun on me. He about to hit me with the car. Call him. I'm telling. Get the license plate. Get the license plate. Get the license plate now. You were never about to hit me with the damn car. You about to hit me with the car? Oh, both of y'all put the guns down on me. Okay. Call Richard back up to the police. Call Richard back up here now. I got it. Don't you jump behind. Oh, no, I ain't jumping on your car. What's wrong? Your husband was in me. Do you see that? They both pointed that gun on me. He was trying to hit me with the car when I was going
So at the end, basically, she gets in the car and drives away before the people can call the police. So now the lady is being charged with assault. Her and the man in the car.
Yeah.
Apparently, he tried to hit whoever they pulled a gun on, and like this is the kind of stuff. This is not the first time we've seen this happen recently. Like where some people will literally pull guns on citizens for either protesting or whatever's happening out here. I want to know why this keeps happening and where do you think it's going to lead?
Entitlement. It's got to be entitlement. You just can't fathom someone that you don't feel like is on the same level as you going against what you want or what you think, or doing things that might be a slight against you, perceived or otherwise. And on top of everything else that's going on, like everyone's on edge. But as far as like things changing, like I'm not sure if it's going to change soon or if it's going to change for the better yet. I see this escalating a little bit more for a while.
It feels like we're at like this breaking point where something is eventually just going to explode. Just like tensions are so high. You've got so much going on right now. And it is, you just have a lot of people that are very angry. And I do think it's going to get worse before it gets better, unfortunately. I just feel like this tension, it's like bubbling to the surface, and you're going to have something explode before things start to get better.
Yeah, I can't see things getting, like a whole lot better, like until we, change basically who's in power. Soon our whole political system is basically set up to enforce this whole belief or doctrine that white people have privilege and they can do basically almost whatever they want, and it pisses me off to no end. As a white person, like I can't be more ashamed sometimes of like how everyone is like every one of my people is like portrayed. And I strive all the time to be better and to teach the people that I can teach better, but it's very almost like hopeless, it seems, until we like change our political regime, because it's almost like systematically enforced that this is going to be the norm for now, until we have like a systematic change, which I am hoping and praying for in this election, but we'll see. I don't know.
I agree, and I don't at the same time, I guess. We definitely need to fix our the systems in place that are that have harbored this, but it's more of a change of heart that we need to have more than anything, because and it's growing. There's, for example, the Black Lives Matter movement as it is now, it sees so much more white allies than it has in the past. I see it myself, and I see them actively trying to become more aware and then make their peers more aware, which I'm really proud of. But as far as it getting better, it feels like all the dirt that's been under the rug, we finally just pulled over the rug, and now everyone just sees it. So it just feels like it's so much, but it's kind of always been it's always been so much. We already knew that, but we just didn't realize how oppressive that was going to feel, because, knowing that all these systems are in place and all these conflicts are there, because these conflicts have been happening for the longest, it's just that, to be honest, a lot of people have been able to get away with it for the longest time. and just now we're really taking a lens to it, and so now it's just a little bit more prevalent in that way. And the pandemic doesn't help because another point, some of the people I've spoken to say that like everyone's online now, everyone's on Facebook, everyone's paying attention more or less because they're not so busy with their jobs and life as we knew it then. But we'll see how that kind of goes, and it will, I think, probably get a little worse before it gets better. Hopefully it'll get better sooner than later, but we'll definitely have to hit an even stronger climax that hopefully does also include changing our regime. So,
well, speaking of regime change, did you all hear about the announcement about the election coming up?
The electoral college change.
Okay, we can talk about that first.
Yeah. Is that what we were talking about?
Are you talking about that other one decided to throw his hat in? Like,
say what?
The guy that Kanye.
Yes, I'm talking about Kanye. You know I'm talking about Kanye.
Let's not. I would rather not Kanye. I'm gonna tell you for one reason why. He's missed out on. He can only get like 14% of the actual vote. Like he can still like now 14 states. Only 14 states. He's missed out on 28% of the vote can actually go to him because he's already missed the deadline to actually run for president.
If he actually runs, he's gonna be the that Trump stays in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I agree to that. But it's annoying because it's a tweet.
Biden.
I don't want to think about it. Fucking hate Biden.
I just don't think it just feels like something that like someone just says and is suddenly because it's a celebrity now everyone wants to just read so much behind it. Like, no.
Well,
I don't want to even give him this time.
That's my thing though. Like I don't like. Yeah, I saw it, but like I don't, and I haven't paid Kanye any mind for the last several years now. So this is just, it's Kanye. Look, he can kick rocks. Like I'm not thinking about him. Like I'm not paying him no mind.
Like what does he know about running?
The same shit Donald Trump knew about running.
Well, but at least not, okay, I'm not saying I support, but I'm saying that he ran like a multi-billion-dollar business. Like he has and Kanye runs himself, I guess. But I just technically,
him and his wife are definitely worth some.
I'm not talking about what you're worth. I'm talking about like you're savvy in like the world and economics and all that kind of stuff. And I just don't know that Kanye knows anything about that.
About connections, like Donald Trump has had connections to politicians at least.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Over the years, yeah. Like you need someone to actually like run your campaign and things. Like, come on, you can't just go and do it.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to the two of them, I think they both represent something that the people want, though, because when you really talk to people about this election, the focus is still on getting Trump out of office, not putting Biden in it. See what I'm saying?
I just want like a candidate that actually knows what they're doing, who like is not a complete like idiot. Like I just want like a candidate that I can be like, okay, maybe I don't agree on everything that you're standing for, but like you're a decent human being. I think that you could do a decent job. Like I don't need like a celebrity to come in. I want like a leader, like a good actual leader that can take the country and like pull us back together versus like
Bernie,
like a smoke show. I don't want to
Bernie.
I know, bro.
Yeah.
Bernie. Because he wasn't gonna run at first. He said he wasn't running again. But then the fact that he ran again to me was his way of saying, like, y'all need me, bro. I'm down if y'all need me, and I'll come and do this again. And we still didn't give him why?
We still effed it up. I don't understand how it happened.
It's so maddening.
But y'all, the electoral college thing was a good thing that happened.
But even reading that, they were saying that. So for anybody watching who doesn't know, they basically said today, Supreme Court ruled it that the electorates have to go with their state's popular vote.
Yeah, so they can't like make a swing based on other things. They have to go with what the popular vote is in their state.
However, they did also indicate that usually the state does go with the popular vote. usually, which means at some point it has not happened.
But I know that Hillary won some popular votes that did not actually convey Hillary getting into office. So that might have actually helped. I don't know. I have not looked into it. So don't but that might have actually helped at some point.
I think what hurt that campaign was, and I just want to talk, I don't want to do it. I think she should have never threw mud with him. I think he was a mudslinger. And once she started throwing mud back, I think people criticized her more, not because she was a woman, but because she was a politician. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was not a politician. He's this reality star. We expect him to sling mud, but I think we expected her to be above the fray. Maybe it was because she was a woman. I'm going to be honest. I can see that it could have been because she was a woman, but
her record also kind of didn't do good things for her.
And that too. I don't want to say it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that.
I want to talk. I want to talk about. I kind of want to talk about Hamilton.
Yes.
So did y'all watch it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Duh.
No.
Like
Y'all
4
didn't-
times by now.
You watched it 4 times. I'm
Yeah.
personally in love. I haven't seen it yet, but what I'm in love with about it is like this idea that they're putting these live musicals like in our homes, and people are excited about it because I watched something the other day where they were talking about Broadway was basically saying, hey, we need assistance from the government because how are we going to stay afloat? Because the thing about Broadway is that live theater experience, you can't get it anywhere. So seeing how the response that Hamilton got definitely made me feel like, okay, this is a hopeful thing. It could happen this way.
But I think it also makes the arts like accessible for people that can't afford to go pay. Like, even when Hamilton was in Atlanta, I can't pay that to go see the show.
Hundreds of dollars.
Hundreds. And so you're putting this block up between the arts and people that just can't afford to do it. Some people don't have the luxury to pay like $300, $400 a ticket. It's just not realistic.
Right.
So I think putting it on a platform like Disney Plus, like, okay, you're still paying for it technically, unless you're doing the free trial, but you're paying for it in a fraction. But like, it just makes it so that people can actually be part of that conversation, which I think is what art is about creating conversation and having people have those talks. So I think it's a really great thing.
Yeah, that was actually that was a benchmark for me and my friends in Atlanta when I was living in Stone Mountain doing like the theater scene there. Like, if you had money to see Hamilton, like that, like you have Hamilton money, like that's a benchmark.
Yeah.
Like you've got Hamilton money, like, oh, you need to get out of my face. Like, you're not even like a real starving artist. Like, get out of here. But yeah, like seeing it on Disney Plus was it was a great experience because, I mean, obviously it was the original cast. You got to see, and with all the like camera effects and everything, like, and they did a great job, like, with the cinematography and like everything was great. I feel like it does make it more accessible for the public. I'm glad that they did that. I heard some like controversy today. I don't know if it's true or not that like Disney may be taking it away because they're like, apparently, Alexander Hamilton. Yeah, because Hamilton apparently someone reported on the internet that he had slaves, and
I was going to say that because people are upset about it. Look, people are going after these because I think what people are upset about right now is this glorification of these men that without identifying that they had these flaws too. Like, I think what happens is we paint them to be these heroes, like Christopher Columbus. A lot of people feel like, oh, Christopher Columbus wasn't really a hero. Like, yeah, he founded America, but in order to do that, he like destroyed a lot of really, innocent people. And it's not so much that we can't acknowledge that he discovered America. It's just that also we have to remember that he basically also took a lot of people's lives and
genocide.
Yeah. So
and it wasn't even America. It was the West Indies, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, it wasn't America.
Yeah, he like, well, that's a big thing. He also just kind of stumbled upon it.
Right.
It's not like he found it. Like, it's like it's always been there, and there were people already living there, and we kind of eradicated them to take it over.
It's obvious
the impetus of that.
It's obvious that we need to really, and as a teacher, like I'm saying this, really think about like how history is talked about, especially when we're talking about like the foundation of our country, who these men were and like what they were about. And yes, they did these great things with, you know, the Constitution, fighting the Revolutionary War, but like there's things that that contradict the idea of what the Constitution and what America was meant to be. So, you know, liberty and all that stuff. So like if you're saying that and like men are created equal, but like, you know, you still have slaves, women can't vote,
right?
Like that's the problem. And yes, there have been improvements, there have been changes, but let's keep in mind, like when they were writing these important documents, there are demographics that were not included, that were not in mind when these things were created, and it took a lot of protesting, often rioting, and change to make it to even where we are right now. So like I think it's a really big conversation on like how we really need to discuss history and how we teach history to our children. Like letting go of the idea that Columbus discovered America, understanding that many of our founding fathers were in slave trade, whether they had slaves or in Hamilton's case, like the family that he married into were in the slave trading business. So like things like that, like you got to be honest about it. You got to get the full spectrum of these people because they are human and they're not perfect, but you got to understand like the full picture of all these things.
Yeah, did you see that picture that they have online with the dots?
Yes.
Yeah. And there's like 3 people who
basically it's like this picture of the people who signed the Declaration. Actually, I looked at there's 2 pictures. There's one that has like the red dots and one that has the yellow dots. The one with the red dots showed everyone in the room who had slaves. And there were like 8 people who in that room did not have slaves, which is a larger number than I expected. I'm not even gonna lie.
Right.
And then the picture with the yellow dots showed all the people who had slaves but freed them at some point. But that number was even larger. And to me, it's an indicator that, because I guess maybe it's me trying to be like, maybe it's me being naive or being overly optimistic. I think there was this spark in their minds, people's minds, because they're people. You know what I'm saying? They're not dumb. These people were not at all dumb, that they had to know that something wasn't right about enslaving these people. They had to know it. Like, it wasn't just this normal thing. Like, there was this idea that they were coming up with this concept of this government in this land that was supposed to be all inclusive. And because these men decided to free their slaves randomly, there was that thought occurring already. But I guess you see apparently that thought was occurring while at the same time there were people who weren't willing to free their slaves. And I think we're still we're still seeing the reverberations of that whole idea. I think we're in a great place to move forward. I think the conversations that need to be had are beginning to be had. I think that there's a lot of positive things in our future. I get the fear because it's so new and different. This happening at the same time as COVID is very like, you know, it's very unnerving. Is that a word?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I got to keep it together. It's very unnerving, but it's also exciting because there's a hope now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's like this, this can actually be better. We can let it be better. All right, so since we're talking about Disney, I want to go ahead and move into our geek debate for the night because I've been waiting. So just to remind anybody, I'm Charmed, Jess is Buffy, Rakia is Buffy, Julian is Avatar, Chris is X-Men. Now, having said that, I think we're all fans of all of those. So I want to start with this question to the group. What is your favorite series? I'm sorry, no, which is the better of those series that we have?
Oh.
Ooh.
Ooh, that's hard.
Ooh.
So I want the Buffyers to go first. And why you think Buffy's the best?
You want to go first? Or you want me to go?
Okay. I guess I could go first. That's hard because like I just not get into Avatar because my son started watching it. So I don't have the connection to it quite yet.
It's so good, girl. You're missing out. It's so good.
I mean, it's on Netflix, so I'm gonna get into it. But like, I haven't gotten attached to it quite yet. But
it's definitely the best animated thing that I think has ever been created.
So good.
It looks pretty good so far, what I've seen. But there's a special place in my heart as an adolescent, as a middle school Rakia for Buffy, and like not even just Buffy, but like that WB era.
Yes, Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Yes, yes, like all of that.
Right.
So Buffy, Angel, Sabrina, like Friday nights watching WB, Tuesday nights, like I, someone that like didn't have cable for the majority of my time growing up, like WB was it for me. Mm-hmm. So like I have a real big attachment to like the WB and UPN. So like Buffy and just kind of like that coming of age type series. But X-Men, like I enjoyed most of the movies and I was attached to the cartoons for sure. But for me, I think it'd be Buffy out of the group that we mentioned.
So obviously I'm gonna go Buffy too.
But why? I want to know specifically.
Hang on, I'm getting to it. I have a full reason. I love Charmed. I really do. But I think that Buffy delves into these very, very difficult topics that were very new for the 90s, right? And I think even every time I rewatch it, I get something new from it. Not only are we talking about like the first lesbian kiss ever.
Really?
Sarah and Willow on network television.
Really? That was the first?
Yes. I mean, it was above its time in things like that. But take an episode like The Body, if y'all are familiar. You are talking about Joss Whedon tackling some very, very difficult issues. You're talking about dealing with death and loss. And, the further you get into that series, you just deal with these very difficult topics. And as a young girl growing up watching it, it really makes you want to be this brave person that can deal with all of these difficult things. She's this role model. She's a hugely strong, independent woman. But she's got these flaws, and it shows you that flaws are okay. You can be strong with flaws. And then it teaches you how to get through things. Mm-hmm. You get through death. You get through the loss of love when she has to kill Angel. And spoilers. I need to say that.
Spoilers, everybody, spoilers.
But you get through these just difficult things. And then Joss Whedon, the brilliant man that he is, brings in the sister. And you deal with a new kind of relationship. And so he's just building all of these different facets. And I think every time you watch it, you really can delve into it deeper to get something new. And I think that's why it translates so well now. Even people who are just finding Buffy can find something that relates to this time. I'm going to stop. I feel like I'm rambling, but like there's just a lot of sexuality within like vampires, right? Because a lot of times you're talking about vampires. If you really watch it and delve into it, the vampires really have this. There's no sexuality. There's this thing where you could think about Spike and Angel, obviously Drusilla and Darla. They were all kind of like a thing. Right. And so it's just normalizing sexuality in a way that really wasn't normalized in the 90s. So I just think that it was way above its time. And there's even things today that you can take a look at and go, wow, it just held up. So I'm done.
Yeah,
now.
sexuality felt fairly fluid between the vampires, particularly that foursome.
Yes, that foursome.
To me, like some of the so I'm gonna go next because the reason I'm going next is because ours is more similar. X-Men and Avatar are different. The reason I like Charmed, now I agree with you. Joss Whedon went in on I loved how like real that show was. I think Buffy literally paved the way for everything that's supernatural on TV, but so did Charmed. Let me tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
Charmed was first in its kind of how it was so female, like, girl. Like, I get Buffy, but Charmed was all about the women. Women. Mom was badass, Prue was bad, everybody, all the women, right? Mm-hmm. Leo was getting saved by them half the time. Like, he came in, he healed and everything, but I think it was cool because it opened up the door to let people know that, like, women can be on, I think they both did this, but a group of women can be on set together, share the screen. Now, granted, there was some issues in the beginning, but they can share the screen. They can.
Shannon Doherty.
Well, because the crazy thing about it is, I think after that's all said and done, granted there was beef between those two, but I think those two really realized like how important that show was for TV history. It didn't do. I think I read this interview once where Holly Marie Combs was basically saying that the frustration working on that show was that they basically she didn't say it specifically, but she alluded to the fact that the network favored Buffy more than Charmed, and she was mad because she was like, our show went longer. And our show had a fan base too. And if y'all had put more money into us, we could have been even better than we were. If you look at Charm, go back and watch Charm. Everybody who's hot right now started out on Charm. They had a guest spot on Charm at some point. And then they became huge. And she was basically saying, like, we opened the door for a lot of people. Charm's one of the most underrated TV shows on the planet. It's playing right now somewhere, this moment, I promise you. And it opened the door for the reason I like Charmed was that it delved into all the lore. Buffy really was just too vampire centric for me. Now, because to me, like, I like Buffy vampires. I think my favorite vampires are probably Vampire Diary vampires, though, because they're so sexy. So like the vampires in Buffy were sexy too, but like they weren't.
James Marsters and David Boreanaz are not hot.
David Boreanaz was alright. Okay.
He's alright. He's just alright.
He was cooler in Bones for real because he was all dopey. I think that was a better look on him. He was always so smoldering. I was like, God,
that's the character.
Wait a minute. You're talking about smoldering, and then you're talking about Vampire Diaries. Paul Wesley and Ian Somerhalder, they smoldered 24/7.
Lies. Let me tell you.
They called Ian Smolderholder. Come on.
The only person on that show who got on my nerves, and I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna come back to it. Because it's a whole nother conversation. So the reason I like Charmed better is because I feel like it focused more on the women. Granted, Willow and Buffy were a great example of that, but I feel like the teamwork between the two was good. Charmed is also, it was ahead of its time. It was like about witchcraft. It was fun. It had leprechauns. It had everything in there. And that's the kind of stuff I wanted to see. So that's why I liked it better. But I agree. Artistically, his was more like neatly put together, and it had these deep themes and Okay, let's hear about who wants to go next? Avatar, X-Men.
I'll go next.
Okay, go.
Sorry. Okay, so the reason I picked X-Men is basically, and I was saying this like before we all kind of got together, but like that was my original geekdom, like from childhood. Like I really just vibed with the X-Men cartoon, the comic books. I mean, I had all of it, the action figures, the everything. Like I loved the X-Men. The movies came out, and I watched all of them. I didn't love all of them, especially.
Which ones?
Oh, do you want me to like really go into
this? We definitely have this conversation.
Okay, so I love the first couple X-Men movies, like the first,
1 and 2.
1 and 2, maybe
the original X-Men and X-Men United.
Yes, and then maybe 3 wasn't so bad, but then like they started getting kind of crazy with like Wolverine was great, but then I mean, especially the latest one, Dark Phoenix was just like so bad.
And I
No,
wanted
Dark Phoenix was the best
good.
one they ever made.
Wait, there are so many people talking. Wait,
Sorry.
what happened? What happened?
I said
Go
I
ahead,
really
Jessa.
wanted it to be good because I love Sophia Turner and I just wanted it to be so good, and it just
I know.
it wasn't.
It was
wasn't.
because
What I don't
the Dark
understand.
Phoenix series was like one of my favorite, the whole favorite series throughout the entire comic book and like
I'm
cartoon
confused.
series, and I didn't love the movie. I didn't.
I don't understand. Are you speaking English, Chris? Because
Are
I
you-
don't get these words.
You loved it?
I loved it. Thought it was the best movie of the series. No lie. No. I lie. I thought it was the second best. My favorite movie of the series was. Did Rakia just click off because I said that? My favorite movie.
She was like, I gotta go.
Right, she said I can't do it. My favorite movie.
I
Of
can't.
the shade. I'm used to
She's
getting
just
shaded.
like, bye.
I've been getting shaded by Rakia for about 10 years at this point.
You're a damn lie. I do not shade you.
That was just shade.
I wasn't trying to shade you. Like I really needed to step out for a second.
Oh, okay. To me, though, the reason I like the best X-Men movie to me was X-Men 2. X-Men United, it was great because everybody got equal shine, like an X-Men movie should. It wasn't really heavy on one character or another. The plot. First of all, I can't stand Wolverine as a character at all. But
Yes.
that's one reason that Dark Phoenix was the best in the series. Finally, they did what that series needed and got rid of Wolverine. And I was like, now we can watch X-Men. Thank you. Let's do it.
Okay.
Thank you. Where do y'all be at when I be trolling with these trolls online about X-Men and about Wolverine? You know, they said they're gonna
Listen, if you ever want to troll Wolverine, you call me next time.
they posted something saying they're gonna cast Hugh Jackman again. And I'm like, why? He's not supposed to. And people are like,
Yeah.
they want to do Old Man Logan. I was like, you want Wolverine that bad that you would rather have all the X-Men dead? I don't like that character, and I don't get what people see in him.
Okay, but so I'm going to segue back to like, yes, X-Men is my number one original fandom, but I have to put in my 2 cents about my Buffy.
Yes.
My Muffy the werewolf slayer. Muffy the werewolf slayer was one of the best shows that I ever watched in my entire life. She just, I don't like I was saying earlier, and I know this was not on camera, but like I wasn't allowed to watch it when I was a teenager, so I had to watch it later in college, and I watched it like literally on loop, just like again and again and again because it was so good. Joss Whedon has a way, like they were saying, of just like it's not only story arc because he can do an entire season a story arc like none other, i.e., like the MCU universe like story arcs. Thank you, Joss Whedon. Hello, thank you. But a character arc like none other. Just like you start with a character, and then like Buffy season 1 is so different from Buffy season 7, like so different. But all the characters are, and like it just everything is so nuanced. Though it's not a like in your face change. It's a gradual, like these characters are building and growing, and Joss Whedon has such a good way of doing that.
Even Xander, who's really like, if you look at him like in the bit, you're like, he didn't change that much. No, Xander has such a huge arc, and he just turns it from this kind of like misogynistic kind of like doofus into like this very, very wise and strong character.
Who is wise? Who is strong?
Not like physically strong, but like
I knew you weren't saying physically. I knew you weren't saying physically because we all know Xander gets his ass whooped off.
I'm not talking about physically, man.
But mentally.
I feel like getting your eye plucked out will do some shit to your mentality.
You're smarter than that. All right.
I feel like yes, if you don't get mentally strong after that, it's ain't nothing you can do.
Oh.
Oh, I'm sorry. Spoiler alert.
Now it's Julian's turn. Julian, go.
Oh, okay. All right. So I chose Avatar, but I'm gonna kind of extend it to also Legend of Korra because it's the same writers and it's basically kind of a continuation in its own way. I mean, it is its own thing in its own right, but I just think they go hand in hand. But I'll stick to Avatar as much as I can for now. I will also say, before I get into it, I guess I'll hit all the other ones because Charmed was my shit. Buffy, not quite as much growing up. At least when I was younger. Like now, I totally see it, but I haven't like it still. I still don't stand it like that because I just haven't gotten into it like that. I don't have that connection from my adolescence kind of to it, I suppose. But I do think that each of them have a lot of value in their own right because what I will say is like Charmed was really more, to me, I thought more female centric than Buffy. And I will say I also agree that I love that they did a more expansive lore as far as like the the mysticism and things like that I do appreciate a little bit more because that's also my thing. But as far as the vampires go for Buffy was, they hit their parts where they could, but they did kind of broach a lot of subjects that you wouldn't have expected to be at that time. So that's what I kind of give it its own credit for. And then X-Men, to be honest, is actually one of my top favorites as well. But that's more, it's less of the current, it's more like the comic books and then the animated series is, those kind of were really more what spoke to me when I was younger and stuff. And like the live actions and like the newer version, the newer installments of it, they are good. They're okay. They're not really all that great, to be honest, in my opinion. But they like what I mean in that is that X-Men was just I related to it more in the way that we talk about how X-Men is like really any disenfranchised group in America and stuff. And like as someone who always kind of stood out growing up and things like that, like Nightcrawler was right there for me, like because he never fit in, he couldn't fit in. It was always like a big thing, you know what I mean? And being like the odd person out, being unable to hide in plain sight. That really spoke to me, at least for X-Men. So like that's my connection to that one. As far as Avatar now being the best one, of course it's the best one because it literally does all those things that each other fandom has a niche for and puts it all together into one. So that's why I'm gonna say shoot.
Do you consider Avatar do you consider that magic?
No.
Is it weird?
In its own way, yeah. It's a little bit more, but that's one of the great things about it is that it also takes a lot of like it's more Far East cultures and like their folklore and mixing them together and things, and that's what I really appreciated about it. So it is technically still magic in its own way. It's just that it's their, it's how they think of magic, which is maybe different from what we typically see as magic, which is a more Western culture based thing, which
that
is a whole different story. By the way, we can get into that one for like
Ronin. Is it Ronin with Keanu Reeves, right? 47, Ronin 47, something like that?
Yeah. I saw that. Yeah.
And there was a witch in there, and she was an Eastern witch, but she was like, she turned into a dragon and all that stuff. So,
yeah, she was like a 9-tailed fox or something like that, or no,
something like that.
Maybe something like that. Which it's like they have their own set of powers. They're like shapeshifters in a way. But that's my point. It took a different culture's folklore and their mysticism, and it put it in the light, and that is definitely what Avatar has done. Their story arcs also, the character development in there is a motherfucking plus. Sokka from the beginning to Sokka to the end is Sokka's bae. I'm sorry, I love that man to death. Okay.
Sokka's development is great. It is great.
His is fantastic. And and that's why I kind of throw Korra in there as well, because like Korra, as by extension, took on a few other, kind of extended a lot of these concepts and then just really took it there. You know what I mean? And it like a lot of the even like the change of the culture, the cultures that each nation built around, and in the different factions within those nations, and then down to their fucking clothing, down to the costuming in it is like, oh god, I love it. I love it. I don't know. It's just something about it is just really great. Like the diversity of it was really nice to see, I have to say. And that's probably why I think it's the best. Because like I said, it kind of touches upon all of the great things that we like to highlight in our other fandoms. And they were like, okay, we're gonna do all of these things.
So it's funny, you guys talked, you mentioned like the magic. And so I've never watched Avatar, shame on me, need to. But the magic reminds me of like, oh, I'm sorry, but so it reminds me of Doctor Strange in kind of like the way that the magic is formed. So like Marvel's Doctor Strange. So a lot of what you're talking about really, and Doctor Strange is probably one of my favorite Marvel movies. So I really love the way that magic works in both of those worlds. So I think that's pretty reminiscent, kind of different than the supernatural magic, but like very kind of like this peaceful kind of like spiritual magic that I really think is pretty cool.
Okay, just really fast, I'm going to say there was technically a fandom that I wanted to go with, but it's not quite yet live action. It's only really book form at the moment. It's going to be live action probably next year, but Wheel of Time is that's it for me. And what about it is fucking amazing is that it really takes it takes mysticism from so many different like places and mixes them together and to make one magic system that is just, it's really robust and it's really like, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's so amazing. Wheel of Time, if you ever have, like, you're going to need like a year maybe to read them all, but read those motherfucking books. Each one is like 1,000 pages. It's like renowned as being like one of the top, like maybe 15 books that has like the most characters. There's like 2,300 characters that they name and mention, and like there's so many. Oh my god, it's so good though. It sounds like, oh my god, what? There's like 1,000 names, but it is so good, and they're making it. It's coming out on Amazon Prime, I think, like next year. So
nice.
Just keep an eye out for it. Yeah.
So if I asked you all, because this next question I want to ask. So my favorite thing about all these series is like when people create these like really intense, complex worlds with all these rules, which is actually, side note, I'm kind of mad that y'all like expounded on all of your favorites because I just look like this guy who only likes charm.
No, we know you love a lot.
Right, everything y'all said, I'm down with these are all my favorites. This like little collection right here. So I was happy to talk about all of them because to me, Buffy, Charmed is my favorite. Buffy's the best thing that exists in that genre, period. I don't think there will ever be a Buffy again, but Buffy, and I think because Buffy raised the bar there. Like you had Sabrina, you had Bewitched, you had other stuff like that. But Buffy allowed you to have depth at the same time. So you could go on this emotional journey and still have this kind of like action-based stuff. So my favorite thing about shows like Buffy and movies and TV shows like that is the world that they create. Like, where there's rules and consequences like, oh, this is that and this is that. So I want to ask, who do you think did best? More specifically on magic, supernatural stuff, if you have to go outside that you can. Who do you think did best in creating those kind of worlds? If it was like True Blood, Charmed, Vampire Diaries.
I kind of like the magic and rules in like supernatural. Like, I really like the Winchesters and the way that like lore and magic works in that world. I like how they kind of defeat ghosts and they use kind of just different languages and different lores. And like, I think if you're talking about like the world building that you were talking about with Charmed, which Charmed was a huge favorite. So don't get me wrong. But like, I love the way that Supernatural just kind of took all of the different belief systems and all the different like monsters and ghouls and demons and beliefs and like made them into like one show. They pulled all of the lore.
And it still like meshed well together too.
It did. Did it go on too long? I feel like yes.
I disagree.
No.
Sam or Dean.
But I like them both for different reasons.
Dean.
Sam.
I'm usually a Dean person.
Wait, Sam is the moose, right?
The moose, yes.
Yeah, I couldn't stand Dean. Dean got on my last nerve every episode. Dean is the reason everything went wrong all the time.
Oh.
Okay, so if we're talking like overall world creation, and like magic creation, everything. This is a new one that I'm going to throw in the ring. I'm sorry, Harry Potter is one of the like epitomes of just that whole world, the magic, the rules, the like spells, everything's kind of laid out for you. Oh, she said Robert Jordan. Oh, she did say Robert Jordan.
I did say Robert Jordan, like Conan, like he's. Oh, sorry.
Okay, that okay. I didn't realize what you were talking about was Robert Jordan because my brother-in-law's been like begging me to read the series because he says it's the best of all time.
Oh my god, do it! Oh my god, do it! We're like a huge fandom. We're such a huge like I underline like under the radar fandom.
No, he says it's literally the best of all time. Okay, so now back to what I was saying. Harry Potter, though, as far as right now, because I haven't read the Robert Jordan, which is supposed to be the best of all time, is a world that is pretty, I mean, almost completely perfect. I feel like with the rules and the spells and the like the hierarchy and all of the things, like I mean it's a brilliantly conceived world. I wish frickin' J.K. Rowling wasn't a transphobic bitch.
That part.
Dropped into the world. I don't know what you're talking about.
That part. Thank you. Yes.
It's like you can have your opinion though, but you don't have to. You realize that little. Yeah,
like I want her.
I am a racist.
I want her to be a really tolerant, amazing person because I feel like she wrote some really great fucking books. But then,
but like the first like part of like that felt like that was part of the world that she built was
inclusivity.
Right? Like, did you not read what you wrote? What are you doing?
What are you doing? What are you doing, you crazy bitch? You crazy bitch. Okay.
Absolutely. I agree though. I agree. I think whenever because I'm like a big high fantasy kind of buff myself, so like that's really where my niche lives. So as far as world building, like a magic system is always really important, I think, to like high fantasy, and she did a really, really great job of like creating a magic system that was like that felt tangible. It wasn't like, because I've read so many like fantasy books where it's just like, oh well, like magically we just did this and then magically we just did that, and it's like there is no rules, there are no like suddenly you're doing something great in this scene, and then the scene before the next scene you're doing something that's like almost nothing, and it's like hard for you. Like I don't understand. Like there's no rules, there's no regulations. How does this work? So it's like she really did a great job of building that, and then not in just that, but in like including a lot of different concepts of high fantasy and melding them together. And then there's a few other ones that I'm actually going to coin that did that really well as well. Not that Charmed didn't do that well. No,
it did.
Or Buffy, but they were kind of campy, but they were campy because like that was the 90s and that was that time. So it was a little
Buffy to be campy.
It can be.
The movie Buffy was definitely campy.
Oh, the movie was definitely campy, but
the only time Buffy was campy was the musical episode, and that was, I think, intentionally so.
Well, no, that's what I mean. I think it's just like the way that they include these different magical like creatures and structures and things, like concepts at least. They feel a little campy. But okay, that's not true.
Yeah.
But other ones that I say that did that pretty well was. Technically, I think True Blood actually did that really well in a way, in a different way, where it kind of brought everyone down to like just a regular level. It was like, oh, they're like humans, but they're not really humans. Like the fairy, like like they were your regular everyday people. They weren't like these just mystical creatures that only existed on a different realm and then would pop in and out of ours, which is my point there. It's like they kind of lived among you, so it's like they kind of were blended in, but they happen to have like different abilities and they happen to be different magical races and things like that. True Blood I think did that really well, and then the other one was it actually escapes me at this moment. I had it in my brain and now it's a loss.
True Blood made me angry only because I read all the books. Like, and
Yeah,
I
you read the
read
book.
It's vastly different from the books.
vastly different. And like
Really?
when they got to season 4 and they fucked up season 4 so bad, like,
How?
oh my
Like
god.
after book 1, they screwed it up. Season 1, they just like it all just veered off from there.
Season 1 was great, and then
Yeah.
season 2 was really different from the book. Season 3 was, I mean, vastly, but then season 4, because book 4 was my favorite, because that was the book. That was the book where Eric and Suki finally got together.
Yeah.
Oh, they actually got together in the story at some point. 'Cause they
Yes.
never got together in the show, right?
So they did.
His,
But, like,
I mean, they
barely.
did, but it was not done justice. And so, like,
You know what I can't stand about these vampire shows? It's like I don't understand what these it's always this one human girl who's incredibly, for all intents and purposes, plain. I'm gonna use this because they always cast some like really not plain person, but essentially she's very plain. And for some reason, every supernatural creature is just like enamored with this girl so much that they're willing to risk. I've been alive for 5,000 years, and now that this girl's come into my life, I'm willing to die.
Elena Gilbert.
Miss Homely Street Rat.
I love the Twilight books so much, and that's
Twilight. I can't get with the Twilight books because it's
You
like.
know, I
The
was
books I couldn't.
when they came out. It was
No, no,
like part of my like, ooh,
Sorry, let me rephrase because I don't mind the books. I actually like the book I read is actually very.
the movies are terrible. Like, why would you cast who you cast in most of those roles? I don't know. But
I
My
will
thing about
say,
the movies was just that they were so like. I don't like those scenes, and maybe it's because as an actor, I don't like those like.
you don't like the broody scene.
like I'm close to you right now. I want to kiss you, but I can't because if I kiss you, then it'll take over me and I'll bite you, and I can't stand that shit. I'm like, if you don't either kiss this girl or go on my because you feel this way, so why can't I just can't keep myself away from you. And I literally like when I be watching Vampire Diaries, I'll be like, yes. And then when I see it come up, I'll be like, you know what I'm saying? I cannot deal with that. That's the worst to me. That's why I kind of liked Eric in True Blood better than Bill. Because Eric really wasn't for
yes, 100%.
Yeah.
He's better in the
Absolutely.
books too.
He's way better in the books too. And the
And
book
that
where they
Manly
get
Mask
together.
was beautiful. Let's be honest.
It's better.
And see, this is what I'll say about the Twilight books. I'll put my piece in because the Twilight books were terrible. I'm just saying they were terribly written. They were terribly edited.
Yeah.
They were like there were so many typos. But I read them. I read them like to filth. I read them just. And it got me back into reading. It got me back into like because after high school basically decided that I wasn't going to read anymore because like why do you need to read? And then all of a sudden the Twilight books came out and people were like, no, you need to read this. Like you should read. And I was like, okay, I can. And then I read all of them. And then I read like the Sookie Stackhouse books. And I like started on a reading. I read the Artemis Fowl books. I read the friggin' what the gods, the Robert Jordan, whatever, all those the Greek gods books. I read all of them, like all of them, the young adult fiction, and they were so good. They were so good, and it got me back into reading again. Thank God, even though they were terribly edited.
Not great, no, but
So
like
many
nostalgia.
typos.
It's like when you watch like Halloween Town from Disney.
Ah,
Like,
Yes,
now you're like, I love this, but it's so bad. But you're
like Twitches. Do you remember Twitches?
Yeah.
I love Twitches.
Oh my god,
Happy
yeah.
birthday, Maori twins.
Listen,
Yeah.
so for me though, like one of my favorite things to see is like I like good conflict and good battle scenes. That's what I feel like Buffy had the best. Like when they were going in to fight, they went in to wreck shit up. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't gonna be no like I'm gonna throw this at you, you're gonna throw that at me, and one of us is done after that. That's what I love. Like it was gonna be a struggle. My favorite. If everyone here has watched Buffy,
we've spoiled so much. I would hope. So.
I don't think Julian has though. Because look at his
I
face.
I've like watched it religiously. I haven't watched it religiously. Like I've
But
saw it
seen the
through,
whole
but it was more
series.
like playing in the background at the time. So it's like
Julian, you need to watch Buffy from start to finish. Because
I do. I know. I need to sit down with it.
And then go on.
You just
because
do.
it's really got everything you really want in there. It's got drama, it's got action, it's got attractive people.
Yeah.
My favorite character, my favorite character was Cordelia. Because I feel like her character growth was the best.
But you have to watch Angel. You have to watch
Right.
Angel to see
You
the
do
whole
have to watch
picture.
Angel.
Oh, but it's so
Her character growth.
good.
I know. It was so like what I hated about her. I hated her exit, kind of, sort of, but not really. I hated her exit. But what I love about Joss Whedon and anything he does because it was around her like pregnancy and all that stuff. He worked it into that story, but made sense.
Well, and episode 100, he gave her due. He brought her back. And gave her like
He made it all make sense, and he made it seem like that was his plan from the beginning. Like the episode,
I don't know if it was that good. Like, it was really weird.
You say what?
I'm saying it was a little weird. Like, I don't think Joss would have been like, yes, Connor, Cordelia, that's my plan ultimately. It just felt a little
Cordelia, though. It wasn't Cordelia.
I know, but it was still icky. I don't know. I
It
can't.
was a little weird. I will say that whole thing was a little weird.
I think you could tell it was a little forced.
What was it about it? He was an adult. She was an adult.
No, it's just like
No. He was like 18.
He was technically an adult.
He was technically an adult.
Technically.
He went to a whole, spoiler alert for anybody who's watching, if you don't know. He went to a whole nother dimension and grew up. So yeah, it was only like yesterday for
Did you
us.
say whole nother?
He went to a whole nother dimension. He
It was
literally
whole other.
okay, but I'm gonna take this to my
We have a debate. Thomas and I have a debate going about whether whole nother is a thing. And I say, yes, whole nother is a thing.
what did it mean? What is the opposite of
It's
whole?
supposed to be whole other.
A whole other.
Nobody says that.
No N.
Who says that? Who says that? Raise your hand in this chat if you say whole other.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, that
Whole,
makes sense.
whole nother is what I've always said.
Julia, why are you raising your hand?
I don't know what that means.
Go ahead, down.
I say
because
whole
I-
other. I don't say whole nother. I mean, I
Because what
understand it. I get it. I get where you're coming
Wait,
from.
that's a
Because
whole-
when I'm thinking of whole nother, I'm thinking like whole another thing. Like another is in there for me, but like I don't say the but like
Right.
whole
Right.
another.
Right.
Whole other.
It's a
whole
it's a thing.
That's the like proper way to say
This
it.
is
It
this
is
is the
whole
thing me and my
other.
fiance have.
That's what I mean. I don't think
You
whole
would say that
another is supposed to be like an
I say
actual
that.
is proper.
if you okay,
Verbiage.
I'm gonna re-say the sentence. So he went to a whole other dimension. Anyway, to a whole other place, grew up, became a whole grown man, came back and got him some good.
No.
Was he was he like? I could have sworn was he like 18, 19 though, or was he like a full adult?
It would be like if my
This conversation's about to take a turn. I can feel
with
it.
my little sister. That's how it would feel. That's how it
It
feels,
felt-
right?
It,
Like
it felt like a late teen to me.
Let me ask this question real quick. When y'all were 18, right? When you were 18, the ideal person that you could have chosen to sleep with, were they your age or older? Don't even gotta answer that loud because your face is telling it all right now.
no, like
No, everybody, look, Julian literally
I was in a relationship with a person that was all I wanted forever and ever.
okay, whatever. So just that girl who didn't, but everybody else was like, yeah. Even celebrity-wise, no one wants a celebrity their age. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think it was anything wrong with what Connor did. I don't think
It's not, but the relationships are the issue. The issue is that Cordelia and Angel were a thing, sort of.
Right.
but it wasn't Cordelia.
I know, but you are the viewer and you're watching it and you're going, God, this is terrible. Cordelia,
Right.
no.
The fact that it wasn't Cordelia, it was a whole nother entity. Side
It's
note.
a whole nother.
You don't know that for a long time.
Leave him alone.
Orpheus was one of my favorite episodes of Angel. When Willow came through,
Yeah.
Oh,
Willow
Willow.
came through. And then her and Cordelia had to go off, and Willow was like, "Do you know who I am?" What? I don't think.
I love when her and Fred have that little flirty moment too. It's really kind of cute. You're
and
like,
she tells Fred, she's like, "I'm seeing someone," and Fred goes, "I love that movie.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so my answer to your question. So there are bits and pieces of different shows. So like Buffy for me with the folklore, I really enjoyed how in the later seasons they delved a little bit deeper into the Slayer folklore.
Yes.
Talking about the origins and like you see how the first Slayer was created. Which episode was that? That was like the end of season 4, wasn't it?
That was season 5.
Like the Restless episode where the Slayer comes back.
Yeah,
Wait, was it season 4?
It was season 4 because that was the end of the initiative.
They go into Adam's mind.
Initiative.
The rest of them, yeah. So the Slayer tries to kill them all in their sleep.
Yeah, that was the end of the initiative.
It was a consequence of the spell that they used.
Yes,
yeah, it was the season finale of season 4.
You're right.
And so like that was the start of it, and then maybe like a season or two later, you really start getting into like the folklore of the Slayer and the Watchers and how Buffy is so different from all the past Slayers because she has. It's not just Slayer. She's not alone anymore. She has a whole crew. Like she had like the
Which
Watchers.
makes sense.
Right. Like
Spike goes into it a lot with it. I think it's called the episode's like I think Lover's Walk.
Mm-hmm.
But he goes into it when he's talking to her about like how he's killed all these other Slayers, and then he's like, the reason you are still here is that you've got ties to the world.
Right.
Like, people didn't. Yeah.
Right.
It's not even that she had ties, is that her ties were like, oh, she ain't going nowhere. We got her.
Right.
The thing about it is like when I love that about Buffy. The thing I like about both Buffy and Charmed was this underlying theme of teamwork. Love that. Mm-hmm. And which is very present in the Avengers movies, and I think that's why they work.
Oh, I love it.
Honest, because you want to see a group of badass people who he's got the brains, but she's got the whatever kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have Charmed. My favorite thing about Charmed was the elevation of their powers, so I've watched every single episode of Charmed at least 10 times. At least. The beautiful thing about it, there was one storyline where they went to the future and Prue was alive in that future. Spoiler alert, Prue didn't make it to the last episode.
Right.
But
I think we'll be on spoiler alerts at this point.
I know.
Look, but they showed how they went to the future and they had their powers, and their powers were so much stronger. Prue's like telekinesis was deadly, like viciously deadly. And I wish I would have seen more of that in Charm. I would have loved to see how their powers, because by the end of it, like the way it ends is we see them in their like 80s. I would have loved to see how powerful they were after freaking 80s. You're 80.
They fully developed.
Because all of their parents died young. Same reason I'm assuming that Buffy, the Slayers died young because they were alone. Charmed ones were together, so they lived until their 80s. They would have been super powerful. Piper didn't have to fight no demons. She could probably just sneeze and you know?
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
So, and then with like the Vampire Diaries, there wasn't very much folklore. Like, yes, they did, but there was so much about the folklore that they would introduce, but never like delve into. So, like, my biggest complaint is the Bennett coven.
Girl, yes, but
The
they have the best, my favorite folklore, the originals, that whole thing.
Yes, thank you. They did.
So dope.
And that's where like the TVD like Vampire Diaries fell short compared to the originals. Is that the originals did really well with the Louisiana, New Orleans witches folklore.
I'm sorry. I'm saying the Vampire Diaries origin story of the originals is my favorite. The originals itself was good, but I would always choose.
I don't know. I think that particularly in like the first couple of seasons of the originals, they did really well with that particular section of witchcraft and how it tied to the entire city. Now, like I said before, with the Bennett Coven, like they could have done
so much more.
So much more.
They need to make that show. Rakia, let's make that show. Let's what? Look, Rakia, I have a plan, and I'm telling everybody live, so if somebody steal my idea, maybe I shouldn't say it. We're going to talk after this.
So, like, spoiler episode, like that final season where Bonnie is searching the town for like the gazillion time, but she's getting like the help of the spirits of every single witch from the Bennett Coven, like all the ones you've actually seen, like her grandmother Sheila, her cousin Lucy, all these people. And like that would have been an amazing series to me, because you're talking about a group of Black witches living in the South and just their time in like the specific area. Like they could have, if they had the right people in the writer's room, they could have done some things with that. My problem was that they introduced these things of how the Bennett Coven was so intricate to everything that happens in the entire like series, in their entire folklore, but like the Bennett Coven never got the respect of, hey, if it wasn't for this Bennett Coven, all your faves would not be there.
I have several comments, because for one, I agree with everything you just said. Side note, do you remember Bonnie Bennett ran into her cousin at one time?
Lucy, yes.
Right. Do you realize that Lucy died at some point?
Yes.
How did she die?
It was the second to last season with.
Okay, then don't tell me.
Okay, sorry.
Because all I remember, I didn't see her die. I just saw she was in the last scene with Bonnie. She was right behind Bonnie.
You find out like the season before, because it has something to do with Enzo and his family.
I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna watch it.
Okay.
But anyway, so the thing I think is interesting about that, because first of all, I had an issue. The thing I liked about Vampire Diaries the most when I first started watching it was how they, without speaking, made reference to their races. The vampires were all Nordic-looking people. The werewolves were all native-looking people. The witches were all Black. Then we go to New Orleans, no Black witches. No, that doesn't make any sense to me. If you're in
for Vincent, and Vincent was my favorite.
He was like, he came back like the last season, and then he was leading all these witches, and I just was confused. I was like, you have New Orleans witches, and they're all white?
When I was an extra on the originals, I was a werewolf, and I am very white. I'm not native. I'm not native looking, but I was
would have been more werewolf.
Huh?
Julian would have been a werewolf the first 2 seasons or 3 seasons.
He definitely probably would have.
And the probably that second to last season too, where they were talking about the because the werewolves, it was very specific towards the end of the originals that they were indigenous, they were Native American, like they were indigenous looking. So it's there's lots of problematic things all through it. Yeah.
Even when the originals came here, they said the originals came from Europe and encountered the people who were already living there, the werewolves. Like they made that very clear. I agree with you. This is my issue with the Bonnie Bennett thing. We're seeing it now when people are calling it out, but Bonnie Bennett got classic. She got tokened. She was tokened. And it's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy. I was watching something and they were talking about the archetype of that character. She's strong. She's the best friend. She's strong. She's always the one you call to fix shit. She's always the one who comes in and saves the day. And then, but she never, like, they went in on that type of character. And I'm like, yo. But what I do applaud Vampire Diaries for doing, they redeemed her so awesomely in that last episode. I was so happy that they did that for her, like that they gave her that, like, yeah, we know you're the reason that they stayed alive and you had to go through hell. But she's the only character in that entire series. Every time somebody died, the group brought them back. She's the only one who did it herself. She brought herself back to life.
That's pretty cool.
They do that at. It's creepy. Jessica, have you not seen it?
No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
You never seen Vampire Diaries, Jessica?
It's like very teeny bopper. I'm just not.
I haven't seen it either.
No, it's not. What? It is.
I was in it and I didn't watch it. I still haven't watched the whole thing.
Wait, that's why y'all got quiet. I thought y'all got quiet because we was just.
He's like, I was there.
Y'all got
Like,
quiet.
so if we we're talking about world building, not just magic, but like world building, I would totally like to talk about some Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones. Like,
Let's
we're
do it.
talking about like creating languages. We're talking about like building like actual worlds of maps. Like, that's some world building. Like,
Well,
definitely separate from like the magic-y worlds that we're talking about, because that magic's not a huge. It is, but you've got like the elder like wizards in those kind of stuff, or like the red Scarlet Witch or whatever. So it's not really the same kind of feel. Like the world building, really impressive, I have to say. I
Game
will
of
say.
Thrones did really well creating history.
Mhm.
Tolkien is a benchmark, so as far as that goes, he's like he is a fantasy benchmark, like in that world. So
Yeah,
like
Tolkien-
RR from J.R.R. Tolkien.
yeah,
he creates a world like none other. I mean, and also, I mean, there are multiple books. I mean, not just the Hobbit, but also the Lord of the Rings series, and then things that he's created beyond that, like the Silmarillion. Yes, and it just crazy world building that he's done. It's almost it's on a level that I think, like, I mean, was he just like either tripping every day or like?
Just wait till you get to Wheel of Time. Sorry, not to.
Yeah, I need to do that.
Just wait, because that is like I said, each book is like at least 1,000 pages, like world building.
This needs to be like book club and read it and come back and chat afterwards.
Oh my god, if you guys do, I will love you all forever.
I'm down.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. You know what? Do it. Definitely do it. Definitely do it. I mean, it'll be like in a year or two, because there's like 14 books worth of a lot of pages.
These are literally 1,000-page books.
Robert Jordan.
Each one is like 1,000 pages.
That's
Yes. Without. Yeah, Robert Jordan.
Guy's saying like, you have to read it. Like,
oh my god, yes.
You have to read Robert Jordan.
Like okay, so Tolkien is like the benchmark for like high fantasy and things like that, just because of the world building that he created.
Like all of us have to read. Like, he's like, you have to read it. It's
he's not talking to us. I was like, oh, you're talking to me. No.
I'm so excited about this book, and he turned off his camera to go tell somebody about it. Well, he said, "What?" Yes, that's hilarious.
It's so true, but like. It's just that I feel like Robert Jordan like read Tolkien in his youth, obviously, and like that was his role model, and he just took a lot of what Tolkien did and just amped it up by 1,000. And so that's why I say like Wheel of Time is just amazing, and it really is like a really.
Is Wheel of Time more diverse, both culturally and like sexually?
Yes, yes. Each like it has like a feature of different nations, and each nation, like they are not mirrors of any one particular other culture, but like sometimes a mix of certain ones. So like they have like native, they have a lot of Native American concepts. They have like the Celtic nomads. They have Hindu culture in there. They have Far East culture. They have so many different ones that he's adopted different pieces of, and like that's one of the big things that like the fandom kind of knows that's like underlying, is that Robert Jordan did years of research. His research notes are massive, because he researched different cultures, languages, styles of clothing, down to like the descriptions of like what they're wearing and things. Like it's really, really robust. Like the world building in Wheel of Time is like it's pretty far up there.
I think that's what's missing from Tolkien. I love it. Like I told you all earlier, had a Lord of the Rings themed wedding. So obviously very in love with that movie, my husband and I.
No way, that's awesome.
No, like we didn't dress up as like
Still, that's awesome.
I want to see them.
I'll send y'all some pictures. If you go like on Instagram or something, you can.
Oh my god, yeah.
Okay.
You better have been Irwin.
No, so we didn't like dress up. Like I did have a circlet. And his ring is the ring of Barahir, like Aragorn's ring. That's his wedding ring, actually. A cake with a sword. So like a few things like that were really fun. But I think that's what's missing from Tolkien is that he wrote a bunch of old white men as the characters, and so you really don't have any like female power. You don't have any like cultural
Wheel of
diversity.
Time is super female centric. So for the ladies, definitely won't read it. But go ahead, super female centric.
That was just the point. Is that I love Tolkien. I think he got it started, but I do think that he was missing kind of pieces of the puzzle that make a story even better, right? So like I'm excited to see Wheel of Time and see how kind of like built on that.
It's actually like a controversy now as far as casting goes because they have a lot of diverse casting, and just we expect them to kind of all be white or not.
I wanted to ask the group a question really quick about remakes and such.
Ugh.
So I know that Charmed is already has a remake that's happening. I'm actually a fan, and we can talk about that.
I haven't seen the first season. I've only seen the first season, but I like the first season.
Okay, so let's talk about that then, because I thought I wasn't like when it first came out, I was like, oh my god! And the first episode was painful to watch, not because it was bad, because it was Charmed, and it wasn't Charmed.
Mm-hmm.
So it was hard for me to watch it because I'm like, okay, I know I'm gonna watch this show because if it was called anything other than Charmed, I would have already watched it.
Yeah.
So I knew I was going to watch it. I finally sat down and watched it. And the thing that drew me in really was that they were all ethnic women.
Mm-hmm.
And that was beautiful to have. There are two of them. The way it starts, spoiler alert, by the way. The way it starts is there's two sisters who have the same mother. They all have the same mother. And one of them has a different father. The oldest one has a different father, which I thought was nice because instead of making the youngest one the long lost sister, they mixed Prue and Paige's storyline together, and I thought that was smart. That way you satisfied everybody. But the oldest sister was half black, half Hispanic. Off the rip, I like it. Turns out, we find out later, so is the younger sister's father is actually the older sister's father too. They have the same father. And the middle sister is the one who's the half sister. I love that twist because then the younger black girl has this whole episode where she's like, I don't know how to be black. Right. And I thought that was so fucking dope because it was like socially relevant and socially aware. Like she literally had to go. She was looking at scholarships online and she was like, I don't feel comfortable applying for these scholarships because I don't feel like I've basically earned the right to say that I'm black. And then it was just this whole conversation about what it means to be black and all those kind of things. It was really dope. And I love the fact that they're doing that with Charmed. That they're not, I don't think they're trying to be the other Charmed. And I think that's why it works. They definitely have the same, like the power of three, the elders. But the way they've done that, they quickly do away with a lot of things. They like pay honor to it and then they move on. So if you haven't watched it, I suggest at least binging the first season on Netflix. And I promise you, if you make it to the end of the first season, you're going to stick.
So I would watch it just because you have recommended it. And you should talk first because I feel like I've been talking too much. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that if I could make it through the end of the first season, then I would probably like it. But I stopped watching it after maybe 2 or 3 episodes in. I don't know why.
You have to get through those 2 or 3 because first of all,
me too.
And I don't like to get on here and talk trash about people. I really try not to because but the actress that plays the middle sister, I'm going to preface it with this. I saw her in Fruitvale Station. Loved everything about her performance in that movie. So she has it. I hate all of her choices on Charmed. Every choice she makes. Every time I'm watching her, I'm like, that was your choice? That was your choice? How are you acting this way? And it confused me because I remember I saw her on that first and I was like, I really don't like this actress. Then I saw Fruitvale Station and I was like, holy in smokes, dude. She can like act. She's not, you know what I'm saying? She can act her ass off. So I'm watching Charmed and I'm like, maybe she just isn't committing to the material. Because sometimes when you have like this kind of material, you just have to dive into it though, bro. You just have to dig into it like it's the same type of material. But I don't like her choices, and I think that might be a big part of the reason why, Chris, because her storyline is the most prevalent in the beginning, because she's her and her girlfriend are breaking up because her girlfriend's a policeman. So her storyline, I think they pushed it because they wanted to show this inclusivity, like there's this lesbian relationship that we're showing you and it's all loving and stuff. And so all of her scenes are everywhere, and it's like, no.
I think what kept me from watching it in the very beginning was one, I loved the original Charmed. I was like, why are you remaking this? Another thing was that I read a lot of articles that came out, and I don't really have the frame, so please forgive any kind of ignorance on my part. But a lot of articles that came out of like, Hispanic women and Black women that were like, why can't you make us our own witches? Like, why do we have to take like these 3 witches who were these 90s white women, and why we got to remake that? Why there are so many cool cultural witches or different kinds of magics that you could have used and created our own kind of thing. It didn't have to be Charmed. It could have been this Hispanic magic that was really, you could have,
and that's what's crazy. That's what they're doing. They really could have just done this show as it is and named it something else.
And I think that was what turned me off too, was I was like, you're totally right. So again, I don't have the frame of reference. It's not, it's not me personally, but I've read it and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I don't really necessarily think that I don't know. I stuck with my original Charmed and read about some other different witch stories that were coming out that were like actually like true to like, this is the story and this is the magic, and boom. So.
And I have to agree with that, because like as someone that also like grew up watching the original Charmed, and then this new series of Charmed is also coming at the same time as they're doing a reboot of Roswell on the same network, right? And
Roswell was a good show, though. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Like, I love Roswell. Like, I love me some Roswell. So you have like that, and like with the articles, like there were some articles from the original Charm class where they were just like, this isn't necessary, because there was so much that I didn't realize this until I read about like Holly Marie Combs was like, there was so much input that the actresses was able to put in towards like the later part of the season. They had a lot of they were producers, they were major stakeholders in this, and so like this felt like
robbery.
Yes, in the sense that they're trying to take this story that's already been created, and plus like I was already hesitant just from watching the first season. Like I enjoyed the first season, but like they could have done that, like you said, they could have been any type of other witch TV show, supernatural show. Like, it didn't have to be Charmed. It could have been any of them. And I would have been down with it simply for the fact that it was
what it was.
Latina and, like, essentially, like, Black Latina witches, and, like, had their own folklore. And, like,
let me ask y'all a question then. If they had come out with that show as it was, but they couldn't have done 3 Latina sister witches without any 3 witches that are sisters is always going to be related directly to Charmed.
I don't know.
Necessarily.
I think maybe like you might have felt
but I think that
some influences from the other show, but I think if you would have, like, you didn't need to do the same spell book. You could have had like a very unique thing to this family.
Right.
Because I think it down a rabbit hole a little bit, but if you are into Wicca or any of that kind of stuff, everyone does have their own different spell book. It wouldn't be the same spell book. It wouldn't have the same symbols. It wouldn't be, it would be like very personal. And so they did make it like these 3 witches are very different from the Hollowell sisters, but you still kept all of what made the Hollowell sisters the Hollowell sisters.
The thing about Charmed is like what really made that show pop was the 3 of them. Mm-hmm. Because I was reading an article recently that basically said once Shannon Doherty left, Rose McGowan, basically they were like, hey, do you want to do this show? It's probably only going to last like 2 more seasons anyway. Because she was a movie person and she's like, you know what, sure, I'll do this for 2 seasons. And it went on for 5 more seasons because the chemistry between the 3 of those girls was just everything you needed. Like I would watch that show over and over and over, just the three of them talking shit and teasing with each other, and it was really dope. There's a bunch of things that they're remaking, by the way. I just want to squeeze this in before we cut. There are rumors of them remaking Charmed with the original actresses, but making a movie on Netflix. I'm here for all of that. I've heard a rumor about them remaking Buffy with a black lead.
But they've also said that I remember that the director or the writer came out and said there is only one Buffy, there is only one Willow, there's only one Xander, so it would be a new Slayer.
Okay, so I didn't know that
it would not be Buffy.
It was Joss Whedon who was saying this. Like, if he remade Buffy, it would be a black lead.
No, for sure. And
I didn't read the whole article.
But I remember the writer or the rumored writer coming out, because there was a lot of controversy. People are like, what are you doing? You can't change my Willow. You can't change my, like, these characters that I'm in love with. And she came out and said something about how she's in love. She grew up watching Buffy, right? So, like, those are her characters. And she was like, no, there is one Buffy, one Xander, one Giles, but I think it's time for a new Slayer, is what her quote kind of came out saying. So I do think that it's going to be, I think that it's going to have a lot more diverse cast, and I think that it's going to be just as powerful. But I think they might even call her Buffy, but I think it's going to be a completely different cast of characters after the name.
It's the new Kendra.
Ooh, yes.
Oh, I love Kendra. Let's give it a Kendra spin-off, right? Anytime.
Right. But there's been talks of like people wanting to reboot Buffy for like years now. Like, I remember in college there was talks of them wanting to reboot Buffy, but like there was a clear sign of like Joss Whedon not being a part of it. And so we're like, if Joss Whedon's not gonna be a part
I
of it,
don't want it if he's not gonna be.
Like, why are you talking about this then? Go on.
Like, wait, Joss ain't gonna be there? I'm good.
Good. No, I'm good.
Right.
And like personally, like I could go either way on a reboot for a Buffy, because it has that special place in my heart. But like, if you're going to do it, give me something fresh. Give me something. Yeah. Give me something fresh.
I don't want the same thing remade.
Right.
But the way they ended Buffy, they could definitely just have another Slayer.
Right. You could continue.
And then what would be dope about that is we could see Buffy at some point.
Yeah.
It'd be so dope to see what Buffy is like right now.
Read Slayer. Have you read Slayer? Have you read Chosen? Read those books.
If Sarah Michelle Gellar would agree, then yes.
She would. She would.
One episode of Angel with the crazy Slayer, and then at the end they took her and they were like, she doesn't belong to you. She's with us. And I said, ooh, Buffy pulling strings from across the river. Buffy just like I have this idea of
those crossovers were like, I love those crossovers. I love it. Buffy Angel crossover. Like,
yes, every time they happen. So I do want to ask one more question. Who would win in a fight? Bonnie Bennett, Willow, Piper, or Hermione Granger?
Hermione.
Lies.
Willow. Dark Willow wins every time.
Maybe, but I don't know if Dark Willow fucking with Bonnie Bennett. I don't know.
I feel like
Bonnie Bennett is.
Bonnie Bennett is the witch from the one who brought herself back to life.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Bonnie Bennett had the potential of going dark like Willow, and I feel like I would have loved a dark Bonnie Bennett.
I would have been so.
I would have died for a good.
I thought that's what we were gonna get, but then she died.
Yes. But there's this part where she's learned this new magic. So she's used to doing like spirit magic. So like whatever she's learned is through like her ancestors and all this stuff. But like she learns this new magic called expression, and it's literally like
it's dark magic. Dark
magic, like my will be done type of magic. And
for those of you who don't know, the Vampire Diaries, the way the magic went is that witches were servants of nature. Right. So their goal, their power came from nature to do nature's will and to maintain the balance of nature. And
so it's like much more like actual modern witches.
Yeah. The thing I love about Vampire Diaries, their special effects, all realistic. They use like this much CGI in that show. So it was very realistic. But I want to know why you think Hermione would beat Willow. I'm trying to figure that out.
I think it's just honestly, Willow was gonna be my second choice. I just really like Hermione as a character, and I think, and like I said before, because I didn't really like get into Buffy like that. That's why also it's like, I kind of chose Hermione over Willow just because Hermione is a character that I know better. But I do happen to know that Willow is very powerful, which is why I would have gone with her second.
They said she was the most.
She would have been my second choice, but I just thought that Hermione was so resourceful. She's so resourceful. She's so motherfucking resourceful that I think that she would, if anything, outsmart Willow and beat her in that way. Like maybe not in raw power, but she was
bro. Don't get it twisted. Willow's so good at
it. He didn't know that Willow is like a brain too.
How do you not know that? That was her first gift. That was her first strength. Was her smarts.
And like Willow's not a witch by birth, as opposed to like Hermione. And
Hermione's not either. Her parents are Muggle-born.
No,
blood.
She herself has
as a witch.
Which I don't understand. How can you be a witch if both of your parents are Muggles?
But that's like
I hate that word. I feel like
you're born that way.
That's Harry's mother too. Harry's mother had Muggle parents, and she was a witch. So like there was something innate. Yeah, but like Willow's, I think, is the only one out of that group was not a natural born witch. That was something that was a skill that she acquired through.
But I don't know if the witches were natural born necessarily. The only evidence we have of that is Amy, but because her mother was a witch. But the thing about it was, we didn't know that Amy was a witch because she was born that way or because her mother made her that way.
But I think that also gives props to Willow that this is something that she was not born with, but like she learned it. And like you said, she's very smart. That's her genius. Like she learned this magic. She was a major book nerd, and so like that's part of her thing. Like her being able to like dive deep into this thing.
Also, Tara was born a witch. Tara was born a witch, and she comments how
Mom was right. You're right. I remember that.
Mom was a witch.
Has like grown.
Let Chris say whatever he tried to.
I know he's trying. He wants.
Sorry.
What me? Oh. Yeah. Oh no! I was just gonna say she learned and she mastered. She mastered the arts of witchcraft, and also, I mean, when the time came, she turned dark because things deemed it necessary, but Lord have mercy, she was a force to be reckoned with. You could not deny that Dark Willow. Mm-hmm. You almost could not beat her.
Who do you think is more powerful, Dark Willow or White Willow? Because White Willow showed up for like 2 seconds, but that spell she cast had so much effect. It's still waking up Slayers. You know what I'm saying?
I think that White Willow was more powerful, but it takes a lot more for her to tap into that energy. Dark magic is always easier to reach and tap into. The white magic is much more difficult for her to access. And I don't think it's something that she could ever just tap into like, boom, I'm going to do this. There was a reason, there was a moment that this needed to happen. And that's why she could access that power.
And I think her having that dark moment really like gave her a better balance of the magic that she's capable of doing and what her limits are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of so my thing. I struggle between like Will and Bonnie because with Bonnie did not have a lot of time or opportunity to study her craft.
She had no one to teach her either.
And if I feel like if she had a coven, her Grams, like Bonnie was someone that was fairly solitary. Like she was from a very like important coven. But like she's the only one there and no one to really teach her. So she's doing all this stuff by herself. And so there was so many times where like she could have done way more, had bigger potential, but she didn't have that foundation of a coven. Whereas I think Willow had not the coven, but she did have another witch to help her. She had several witches, but she also had Giles to help her research
needed.
Like, so she had a bit more foundation because plus she was.
She had Giles, she had Amy, she had that boy that was in her and Amy's coven.
Right.
She had Tara, and when she went overseas, she had that whole coven.
Right, but like she also had that group foundation of
friends,
like,
that support system.
Yes. Whereas Bonnie had friends, but Bonnie's friends never really supported her foundation of magic.
They couldn't. They didn't know anything about it. Like they looked to Bonnie for every time something went wrong. They went to find Bonnie. Whenever Bonnie was out of town, everybody it was like, "Oh, we're screwed."
Right.
You know what I also actually loved about the Buffy magic stuff was that when, especially Willow's whole storyline, when Willow was like binging on magic, like they treated it like magic was a drug.
Yeah. That's dope.
And
The Magicians, that was the other one. Sorry.
I haven't seen that yet.
That's a good one.
Is
But
it?
That one is good. Magic system,
it's really
Magicians
good.
is good for that.
It's really
good for that.
But they
you're talking about
treated-
magic systems.
They treated like magic was a drug, and I identified with that a lot because I was going through my own like drug phase in that whole period, but like magic was like super hard. Like if you like really concentrated and like really like got like a heavy dose of like some magic juice or whatever, then that was like getting super high, super fucked up. And I really thought they did a good job of like showing, like, especially with Willow, because Willow had that like whole progression of like, you know, she was, you know, trying to explore her whole magic ability and then went to the dark side. Like
I want to say something about Willow really quick.
Yeah,
what I really like about Joss Whedon and how he laid out each season, I noticed what he does is so beautiful. He introduces, because you know back then they used to do 20 episodes or so. Now they're doing less, but so he would introduce the villain in the first episode every season. Every season you saw the villain in the first episode, except season 6, technically, right? Because Warren was the villain and the trio was the villain. They had us fooled. He did with us, and I didn't. So I'm thinking he always introduces the villain in the first season. I mean, the first episode, and there was no villain in the first episode of season 6. But when you look at it, it was Willow bringing Buffy back from the dead.
Mm-hmm.
And when Giles found out, he went off on her, and you know, and I was like, oh, that's why I love Joss Whedon. It was so subtle but right in your face. It's like, oh yeah, Willow's gonna be the villain this season.
Oh, it's good. Yeah.
And you just didn't even catch it until like, and it's bad because when she was the villain, did anyone else want her to stay that way, kind of, sort of?
Yeah.
I mean, like I wanted my Willow back.
I like
I wanted my yellow crayon Willow back.
The only reason I didn't like Dark Willow was when she tried to destroy everything. I said, okay, now go.
But did I want Dark Willow to be like a friend of the whole squad and just like be like a badass and defeat all their enemies? Yes.
Kind of. She brought up valid points several times. So
Dark Willow came through and the library was open. She was reading everybody.
Yes.
Okay. So
just like, hold on, let me grab my glasses.
I think this group needs to get together and like chat geeky things, like because we didn't cover so much. Like there's like
no.
And, like,
I know there's not enough time.
So many ideas for future possibilities. So this is I hope this will be a recurring thing. So, but for right now, we're hitting that time. So at the end of the show, we usually do what I like to call the final thoughts. I don't know how final thoughts are going to work today because this is we usually and really we just had a geek session. So let's have it this way. Final thoughts on project you're most excited about, upcoming project, whether it's a new this movie, a new that movie, a new this book, whatever. Let's start with who wants to go first? Who has one first?
Me.
Go ahead, go.
Okay, I am super excited that X-Men is becoming a part of the MCU.
I know.
Finally.
I should have went first. I don't know.
Legal rights, finally.
X-Men is becoming part of the MCU, and I could not be more excited because the MCU has done so many good things. And if Joss Whedon is anywhere behind any of this, then God dang it, it's going to be amazing. I hope. So that's what I'm most excited about currently. That's me.
Perfect. Jessa, I saw you put your hand up.
Well, Dury and I are working on a project that I'm super excited about. It's real fun. So it's a while in the making, I think, but I'm super excited about it.
And that project is, it almost was like not gonna happen right away. I don't know how it, like, we decided to wait like a few months to do it.
We were like, we're so busy, I can't do this. And then all of a sudden it was like, so we're working on the first chapter, right?
Right.
It's almost done, right? So really excited about that.
And maybe what we'll do is the five of us will read it.
That would be fun.
And then we'll discuss it once it gets published.
Because it is supernatural.
It is. Oh, I know for a fact that everyone is gonna like it. So, because it's definitely right up everybody's alley.
Yes.
Okay, who wants to go? Rikia, Julia.
Okay, I think I already said mine, but I'm just gonna go anyway. Wheel of motherfucking time. All right,
it's gonna be
coming out next year sometime, supposedly. But like, it's gonna be a show. It's a little. I'm super excited about it, but it's just really. It's like I'm a little worried about how it's gonna translate to live action, I suppose, is really the thing there, because like it's so imaginative. It's such a big world building world. You know, it's a very robust world that they've built. So like translating that to live action is a little bit harder sometimes, especially like the magic system. Like it's really great in Wheel of Time. So like they just, as long as they get that part down, I think a lot of the fans will really be all right with it for the most part. Just because it's so centric upon it. But I'm really excited for it. I'm super, super excited. It's a year away, so like if you kind of really want to watch it, get into the books, start now, because there's 14 books, 15 with a prologue book, a prologue book, and it's really amazing. It's really, really amazing.
Okay, Rikia.
It's like high fantasy amps.
I'm not quite sure what else it's really coming up from. Like everything you guys have mentioned have like been great. So like I'm already like looking on like my Audible and my Kindle for.
You have all those. I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm
about to look on those things for Wheel of Time, so I'm gonna get into that. Okay. But like it's just I'm up for anything like supernatural right now. Like I need that fix. So like whenever anything comes up, let me know, because I'm down for it. I'm down for it.
Okay, there's so many things I'm excited for. Anything Marvel, I am excited for. Let's be crystal clear, okay? Any and all of that. I'm excited for them. Chris took mine, so I'm gonna find another one because I'm mostly excited about it. So more specifically, I'm excited for Beyonce to play Storm. Y'all thought we was gonna do a whole episode about nerddom, and I wasn't gonna say that.
I think he did this episode just to say that.
That's what I'm ready for. Okay, and when that happens, all of the haters just know I'm talking about it every day on the show. I'm gonna show clips, all that stuff. All right, you all. Thank you for joining us for our special geek edition of Talk It Out, where we talk it out. If this is your first time watching us, I hope you enjoyed it. Please come back, head over to YouTube, or you can listen to us on anchor.fm. We have plenty of platforms for you to listen to us on or watch us. Now remember, like, share, subscribe, and comment. This is a place where it's not important to focus on who's right or who's wrong. Instead, it's all about listening and being heard. Have a good night.